Hey Josh, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm great. Glad to finally make your acquaintance and excited to speak with you. Of
And you as well. And I thank you very much for taking time to do this interview.
course.
Oh, awesome. Well, it's great to be able to talk to you and be able to talk about this self-titled debut, which came out just back on Friday. I've gotten the chance to be able to check this out before the release, but also checking it out so much more since getting things lined up for this interview. And the more that I listen to this, the more that I truly do appreciate it. There's so many layers to this that I really love and appreciate. I appreciate the songwriting capabilities that you have with this because it just there's so many peaks and valleys that happen through it, and it makes it feel like you're going through like a soundtrack through a movie or something just from the audio aspect of all of it.
Hmm.
And if there's any kind of complaint that I could have for this album is it just goes by too fast the more that I listen to it. And I just wish there was more to it, but I can imagine that'll happen in the future. But that said, I love this album and I thank you so much for creating it.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. And I'm a couple of things you said. I'm really glad that you did because this sort of was my intent. So you mentioned that it kind of feels like a soundtrack to a movie. Well, that was exactly the orientation that I had. The entirety of the album, which is not just this first piece, but there's also three additional albums that are already written that will be released in the coming probably a couple of years. But every one of those tracks across all those albums is specifically tailored to a screenplay that I've written. And I'm currently working with animators to get those tracks, fully fleshed out from a visual perspective. The kind of first example of that is the video that was created for Gehenna at Tartareum, which is the first track on this album. So that's definitely something I intended, and that's kind of the next step in this project is getting that sort of cinematic elements kind of fleshed out.
Oh, that is incredible to hear, and I'm glad you're already that forward thinking with all of that. I mean, with all the future music and the ideas of being able to get all of that animated and to working with that to make them features. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as far as the comments you made about it going by too fast, like I definitely wanted to give people like, the impression that they wanted more, like kind of leave them sort of wanting more. And the good thing is that I have more ready to go. It's at this point just a matter of kind of just putting the finishing touches and from a production standpoint on the additional albums. But yeah, no, that'll be hopefully people listen to it and have the same orientation as you that they want to hear more and that's the forthcoming albums will kind of sate that thirst, so to speak.
Oh, definitely. And I truly hope that that happens as well too, because from that very first listen onward, I was just so intrigued. And the more that I do listen to it, I can hear all the little nuances that start to happen, the layering that starts to happen, the more things start to progress or regress depending on the movement inside the song. And, whether it is one of the shorter songs, whether it's a 10-minute long song, it's like you can experience all of that. And I appreciate the movements like that because it doesn't feel like there's that many people, especially in 2024, who really care that much about making sure that all the layers truly fit the way that they do with this. Like you can have repetition and have it grow and shrink and make it sound so perfect. And that's what you're doing here. And it's incredible to see all the work that you put into it.
Wow, that's really high praise. I really appreciate that. I'm glad to see that people are kind of, noticing that, the effort that did go into it. I mean, when I think about how much, work went into each individual song. I mean, every individual synth sound had to be precisely crafted. It had to be, produced in the right way. It has to, all the dynamics have to go in. I mean, I'm modulating each of these synths. I'm layering them. There's so much more. And when I compare it to some of my past projects, it's leaps and bounds above what I've done in the past from just a pure effort standpoint. So I'm definitely glad that that's coming through. And that was part of the goal with this project was to really, kind of play with the idea of sort of long form composition, right? So in the past, I've sort of written stuff that's, I don't know if you're familiar with some of the stuff I've done in the past, like Pillaging Villagers, which is more just kind of like a thrash flash folk music, just combination. It's really straight to your face. It's energetic, it's infectious, it kind of grabs you right away. but it's sort of a blunt instrument. Whereas with Cruce Signatus, what I really wanted to do was experiment with the idea of compositions that grow and change and have those peaks and valleys that sort of pay off. When I listen to symphonic music, that's sort of the orientation that Beethoven or Dvorak or any of these sort of symphonic composers that I really look up to. That's sort of their orientation. They take these keynote melodies that are sort of these strong melodies that are sort of you can kind of pick up on them right away, and then they kind of modulate them and reference them throughout the composition, and that's kind of where the payoff comes from, right? As a storytelling device, you can kind of use these keynote melodies to emphasize certain themes or characters or moments in the story, where just without that it wouldn't have that same orientation. So I'm really glad to hear you pick it up on the what I'm putting out there, so to speak.
Oh yeah, and also the other side with all of this as well, and you're already hinting at it's a more the heavier side of what you do as well too. I mean, I appreciate that there is metal influence in this project as well too. I mean, being a metal fan myself, I love the fact that it can be combined with something like this, and it can just help make it grow. And you don't need to necessarily need to make it metal all the time, but when you do throw it in, when there's like those double bass moments, when it's like the heavy chugging moments going on, it's done for effect, not just because you can. And again, that goes with the songwriting process. And I know that that can't be easy to like really be able to like structure that out and know exactly what you want to do. And it's got to be able to take a lot of time and effort to do that. But again, that's why I appreciate it so much because it feels so thought out.
Yeah, no, again, I just really appreciate that you're noticing that. And that's again a big intent of mine was, when I set out to write this album, I didn't even want to use any metal at all. Because I've written metal my whole life, and I want to just kind of, branch out and see what else I could do. But just like the theme of the songs and the sort of story I wanted to tell, it kept kind of pulling the heavier elements back in. But like you said, I really try to use it very, very sparingly. Like in a world where it seems like most metal bands are going for sort of a maximalist approach where everything has to be blasted, everything has to be, this brick walled, super loud composition at all times. I only use even just guitar sparingly throughout the composition. Like there's many minutes that go by without even any guitar. And what I find is that when it comes back in, when you do have that guitar jump back into the mix, it kind of elevates what is going on at the time and can kind of be used in sort of these climax moments where all the different layers of synth kind of come together and then culminate in that sort of return of that keynote melody that you kind of hear throughout the first four tracks.
So thinking about that, going a little bit deeper, and you did kind of hint at it already,
Yeah.
but just to go into it a little bit deeper, like how much effort is it for you to be like able to pick out like the right synth sounds, the right drum patterns, the right guitar tuning, just like everything that goes into it. Like how much does it take for you to like be able to choose like all these different ideas and then just being able to focus it into one for one composition like this?
Yeah, I mean it's a great question. It's really just a matter of kind of having that vision in my head from the screenplay. And I think that's really the differentiating factor that enables me to kind of say, oh, this is what this piece should sound like here, because I'm sort of imagining every second of the composition. I'm imagining, okay, what's happening on the screen. What color is the sky? What expression does the person in the foreground have on their face? And that really kind of anchors everything in this sort of, you know, mood creating sort of approach. When I approach it like a cinematic composition, just like a composer would, every element of the symphony or the orchestra has its own voice. You have an oboe come in here, you have a brass instrument coming here, you have timpani. Like I'm sort of imagining like every synth is another sort of component of the orchestra. And that's sort of the orientation I had. Like I wanted to, especially with this story that I'm telling, it's a medieval, oriented story. It's set in the 11th century. I think it's typical with that type of setting to use very orchestral sounding music. I'm kind of doing the opposite of that was sort of done with Star Wars, right? So in the 70s, if you made a science fiction movie, it was going to be electronic music. That was just how it did. And by John Williams choosing to go orchestral, this sort of symphonic approach, it kind of elevated it and helped differentiate it. I'm kind of going the other direction. Whereas if you see a movie set in the medieval age or anything Game of Thrones, it's going to be this big, orchestral sounding symphonic thing where it's all a real orchestra. I wanted to go the other direction and bring sort of the electronic, feel to it again, just sort of differentiate it as a piece and kind of explore how those themes and those sounds could emphasize that sort of setting.
And that's got me so interested in what will happen in the future. Like when the animation does get into the right direction, you're able to put all of this together, and having my eyes and ears actually be able to check this all out the way that it's meant to be. Like I'm so curious because I got ideas in my head already. Like I'm already envisioning, like you mentioned, with it being more of a medieval feel for this album. So I'm already envisioning ideas of how like things are pieced together like this, and it'll just be so cool when that happens in the future to see it all play out like that. And also with the rest of the albums that you already have the works for, because obviously I can't imagine that you'd be the kind of person to want to make the same kind of album over and over again with this project. Like you want to do something heavier for one, you want to do something lighter for another one, you want to go a different genre maybe for something, just to really match the mood of the movie and the film and the animation that you want to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it feels like we're on the same wavelength with a lot of stuff. Like as you hear the rest of the albums, like really my sort of songwriting vision sort of changed throughout because it took, almost 2.5 years, like 2.5 years to put together all the albums. And kind of over that time, I get different influences, different interests. And, you'll kind of hear those differences. Like obviously everything is intended to be part of the same composition. You're going to hear some of the melodies that you hear in this first album, you'll hear all the way in the fourth album and throughout. Like these melodies are used to kind of anchor the composition. And I use sort of the same range of synth sounds. There's, not all the ones that you've heard in that or in the other ones you'll hear just in the first one. But again, I want it to feel like you're watching a film and that you're not jarred out of your senses by something totally different. But there's all sorts of different influences that go in. There's lighter pieces where I'm influenced more by something like Lord of the Rings. If you're familiar with some of the lighter pieces in that where they're in the Shire, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, so I wanted to see how that would kind of go, how that would feel. Obviously, with this film, there's lighter parts, there's more emotive parts, there's more mournful, there's more uplifting, there's glorious, there's all these different things that are happening in the film, and I had to write pieces that went with that. With this first album, it's very dark. Everything that's happening is you're setting up the main character, our protagonist's story, right? And sort of the thing with this particular character is that he's a villain. It's a villain's journey. So he starts as you're watching the film, you're gonna despise this guy. He's a mercenary. He's a brute. He's just like every knight of the 11th century. His life is based on violence and oppression, and that's who he is. But as he grows, as the story changes, you'll hear the music shift as well.
Yeah, and hearing that it took 2.5 years to like get all these ideas combined, I imagine with the whole on story, making the music, all of that combined, like how much did it change from like the original concept that you had in mind? Like, is there like any particular moments where you realized that something else would have worked better, or were you just going with your original ideas, or how did that come to be?
Yeah, I think that I did a lot of and that's part of the reason why I wanted to finish the entire composition before I released any of the music. Because I found that as I did more of the composing and wrote more of the story, I was like, okay, well, actually going back, I'd love to use this melody that I wrote for a later piece. I'd like to reference it in this earlier piece so that I can call back to it later. So there's a lot of sort of reevaluating what I had already written. And as I kind of grow as a songwriter throughout this process, like there's a lot of like kind of reevaluation and saying, oh, I'd really like to use these types of elements or do here kind of throughout. So there was a ton of revision that went into it. And that's again this big reason why I wanted to just finish the composition where I had kind of all my ideas that could be referenced throughout the whole piece before I released anything. But yeah, it definitely required a lot of sort of reevaluation and the story as well. Like I would say that the sort of broad strokes of the story have remained the same the whole time. It's a story of redemption for our protagonist, but it's much more complex than that. It's steeped in sort of this historical criticism that I'm putting forth. I'm a big medieval history fan, so a lot of it is kind of it's meant to sort of critique a lot of what how the medieval ages are perceived. There's religious criticism. There's all sorts of themes that are in there. I'd say that those kind of elements were kind of there from the beginning, but like the details of the story, what's happening at, minute 6 of track 7, like that all had to be fleshed out. And that really kind of, I would say that the story and at least the specific elements of it grew along with the music. So there was definitely a lot of kind of reevaluation throughout those 2.5 years.
So thinking about that as well too. I mean, of course, audibly, there's so much going on, and there's so much that you want to happen with with the full on animation and movie and making sure everything goes in that direction. But for the album cover with it here too, I find it so striking, and I feel like it really fits the music well. So how do you think about that when you're putting together the album covers for these?
Yeah, great question. The album cover is actually kind of interesting. So one of my big goals for this project is to work with artists that I admire, and I've been a big fan of Heavy Metal Magazine for most of my life. And when I started saying, okay, well, I want to actually try to animate some of this and get some artists to work on it, I just reached out to some artists that I was familiar with and that I really liked from heavy metal. And I got in touch with Chris Anderson, the guy who did the cover for the album. And what I pitched to him was what I really want to do is have an album cover that is part of a larger piece, right? So that when all 4 albums are released, you can put the different album covers together like a puzzle and they'll form a larger sort of like picture, essentially like a whole piece. So that just what you've seen so far in this album cover, that's only 1/4 of the piece that he put together. And with that, I wanted him to use his own artistic vision. I didn't want to give him too much direction. That's really the approach that I want to take with a lot of this. Like I'm not an artist. I do feel that projects like this, creative projects, get better when you allow people to kind of be themselves and use their strengths as opposed to just kind of, ramrodding your vision. So I did with Chris is I just sent him, hey, here are elements that are happening in each movement, right? Each chapter of the story. Here's some, phrases, some concepts, some things to think of. For this first album, I would have said something like, I don't know, rot or decay or hell or fire or damnation. Like I would have said those types and just send him a Word document that had those themes and say, hey, create what these say to you. And just gave him a brief overview of the story, nothing super detailed, and send him the whole screenplay or anything like that. And I just said, do what you think. So it was really a great collaboration between us two, kind of like, you know, giving him the opportunity to just use his artistic skills and be as creative as he could within the context of the piece. So it's kind of realized, it's kind of forged in the I don't know what I'm trying to say, but the overall vision of it was kind of a collaborative process, I guess, to say it in short form.
And that is so important. I don't think enough people talk about that either, because obviously, when you're doing something like this, I mean, you are carrying the burden for so much of it. I mean, obviously, musically, the overall vision of what you want to happen. But when you're able to use collaborators, and especially with ones with such high praise, just like being able to get them to be able to work on something like this and be able to share their vision of what they think that they are able to collaborate with all this, making everything bigger than it could be if it was just your own. And it's great to see that you are showing off that praise as well too, because I know it could be so easy to just think of everything yourself, but when you are able to work with the right people, whether it's PR, whether it's artistic, whether it's visual, whether anything else that happens with it, I mean, when you work with good people, you're going to get good results, and I'm glad to see that that's happened here.
Yeah, no, it was a real pleasure to work with Chris and Vincent as well. Vincent Kings did the animation. He was another heavy metal artist that I'd been following for a while, and it was the same sort of process. Like I really again just wanted him to take the story and imagine it in his own way, and that's what I hope to do with every one of the tracks. So every track is going to have a different animator and illustrator, and what I really wanted that's kind of been the vision from the beginning. I want to kind of have that feel of like Heavy Metal Magazine, or if you've seen Heavy Metal the movie, like every new story feels like a different environment. And what I always thought was lacking in movies like Heavy Metal or Memories or any of these other sort of animated anthologies is that the sort of central theme was sort of like it would just sort of jump around. Whereas this is one story being told by many different artists and animators. So what I hope is that whereas every single track will have a different approach, right? Different creative vision, different, artistic style, different animation style. Everything will be anchored by the story itself. And that's kind of the goal going forward. So hopefully we'll be able to see that, as we release more tracks, there'll be, you kind of see the kind of vision of everything being unified but different.
Oh yeah, and I think something like that can only be done authentically by humans, and I do appreciate that. It's just like I've seen it in the PR, I've seen it through social media, I've seen it on Spotify, looking at the bio as well too. Like how important it is. Like humans actually did create everything that's involved with this project. Like it could be so easy to feed it through a machine or just type in prompts or something like that. But when you listen to this, you can tell it was honestly made by someone who has a passion for making this, not just a random assortment of synths and a story that you just prompted with words. Like this is real and from the heart, and I can't appreciate that more.
Yeah, no, again, I really do appreciate that. And it's funny, like, the whole AI thing kind of came up during the kind of creation of this project. Like, back in 2022, yeah, some people were using AI for, I don't know, just, I don't even remember, maybe just writing marketing copy or something. But, over the course of creating it, just became the sort of worldwide sensation or whatever you'd call it that it is. And I couldn't be more against the use of AI for art. It's I don't know, it's disgusting to me. Part as I kind of saw it rising up, I was like, well, I my vision was already to use this as a, so as a way to produce real art, but now it's even more important to kind of take that stand, and even if it's more costly, more time consuming, to appreciate the power of human creativity and human ingenuity. Like without that, what are we as organisms? So I wholeheartedly believe in that, and I'm glad that I can use whatever small forum I have. I don't know how many people are paying attention, but I'll use whatever forum I have to continue to support real artists, and take a stand against AI for for artistic purposes, so to speak.
Oh yeah, and that's exactly why I do what I do. I love being able to promote projects and bands and artists that have that authenticity behind it. I appreciate the work that they do, and just being able to help spread that word. And this is something that is very near and dear to me, especially when things are so easy to fake out there. Like you can't fake something like this. Like I already said, it's just like you can hear the authenticity, and the more that you listen to it, the more you can tell. Like, well, maybe someday in the future, computers would be able to replicate this kind of sound, but not right now. Like, this is something that's from someone real that really puts something together like this, that really cares about the dynamics, the ebb and flow of everything. And again, that just makes me so excited for the rest of the pieces that will come out to see how it all fits together like this, because no machine's going to be able to put that kind of emotion in there together. Even if you enjoy something that they do make sometime in the future, like it's not going to have this kind of feel and passion and emotion behind it. So yeah, like anyone who does this, like yourself, especially with something that is so electronic and using all these synths, and again, it would be so easy to fake it. I love that you don't. It really came from
Yeah,
you.
I'm glad that you can feel the humanity and the sort of digitized sound. I mean, it is tough, I feel like, as an electronic artist to kind of contend with the, just the plethora of, electronic imitation art, and things that are prompt driven and whatnot. I'm really glad that you can sort of see that there is, like, I tried to take this symphonic or cinematic orchestral approach to the whole thing. And I'm thrilled that at least you're able to see that, and upon listening to it. So that really makes me feel great. And it's an honor to have that praise from someone like yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean every word of it. And I hope others are feeling the same way. And actually, thinking about that as well, too. I mean, obviously, with this first piece coming out back on Friday, what has the reception that you've seen so far for this so far?
Yeah, I would say it's muted. I didn't expect. I mean, I think my expectations were real low. I mean, I'm an independent artist. I don't have any label support. It's a brand new album from a brand new project. So I guess I didn't expect to set the world on fire, but you know, really, the response that I have gotten has been super positive. Everyone I've talked to who's listened to the album is I haven't gotten anyone saying, "Oh, this is crap" or anything like that. It's been really positive, and a lot of the same stuff that you've talked to me about, like people who kind of see the beauty in the music that are drawn in the more they listen to it, that they're excited about the animation elements and the sort of idea of creating this animated anthology. So it's been great. You know, from the perspective of feedback I've gotten, I wish more people would listen to it. I hope that over time that I'll begin to grow a little bit of of a following of sorts, that folks that are interested. But I think ultimately, you know, this was something I did for myself. And whenever I write music, it's mostly for me and almost all for me. I hope other people enjoy it, but you know, really what I want to see it put together. I want to see the albums released. I want to see the anthology come together because I just want to watch it. I have it all in my head, and all of it is recorded or you know, on my computer, but it's I want to see it come forward. So really the audience I care about most is myself and maybe a couple of my friends and my wife. And I'm thrilled for anyone else who joins the group of fans with with me and my small circle of friends. So it's been great.
And that's just another reason why I appreciate this so much is the fact that you actually truly care about what you want to put together. You want to be happy with what you're making and you want to see everything come out because there's so many bands and artists out there who just like go through the normal tropes of just releasing something just to release it, not being proud of what they're doing, just wanting to get it out there. And I can't stand for that. Like that's not something that's ever appealed to me. Like even if you make something I don't like, I would rather have it be authentic to the creator. Like it's what they wanted to make at this point in time, whenever they recorded it and when it comes out. That's always going to matter to me more than feel like I'm getting pandered to or just trying to hit all the trends that are going on in the world right now. I just love hearing that there is still authenticity, no matter the genre that's going on there, and the fact that you're doing that, and even with it, just wanting yourself and a small circle of family and friends to enjoy it, and anyone else is a great thing, of course. But the fact that that's what matters to you before everything else comes together, I love that authenticity.
That's great. I mean, it's sad to think that there are artists putting out stuff that they just don't care about. I get that impression sometimes when I listen to albums that come on, I don't know, it just feels very like, you know, like trend grabby or even just like, you know, derivative of their own. So a lot of bands just tend to produce the same type of stuff over and over again. And it's sad to think that people kind of like lose that spark or that kind of like interest in creating art. You know, and I think a lot of that just comes with kind of commercial appeal. Like, you know, at some point, a lot of people decide that their musical passion has to be their career. And I don't feel like that's a good way to go. I think anytime you create a career out of your passion, you're just sort of like rob yourself of that joy that you get from it. Because you have to focus on all the things that are disconnected from it, like meeting a deadline or pleasing this or that audience or, whatever. And I hope that by, just kind of having this as a fun thing that I do, that I can kind of remain in sort of that outsider realm and just kind of I want to keep it always underground, always independent, so that I'm not influenced to produce something before I'm ready or start to pander to people because really this project is about doing something totally different. I really wanted to you know create both a musical experience as well as a visual experience that hadn't been done before. And without the kind of independent approach that I've taken, I don't know if that would be possible, and I'd have to care about an audience at some point. So, yeah, hopefully it continues that way, and that more and more people try to listen to it, and kind of grows from there.
Oh, absolutely. And again, that's just got me so excited for the rest of the compositions that go along with this overarching story. And
Yeah.
thinking about that as well, too. I mean, obviously, with some of these have already been in the works for 2.5 years now. Do you have any ideas of what you want to do with this next? Like, are you going to continue under this moniker to continue this kind of style of music, or do you see yourself going into another direction with new music, or what is that for
Yeah,
you?
it's a good question. I feel like I've kind of said all out, well, at least with the music that I've produced for these four albums, it's a feature-length composition, so it's almost 2.5 hours of music. I feel like I've kind of said all I want to say with this piece. I I hope that over the course of four albums that'll be enough for me. But I mean, I love the way it sounds so much, and it doesn't like I don't get sick of listening to it. So I wonder if I'll ever get sick of creating it. Like my songwriting process is a little bit, I don't know, maybe unique. I don't know how the people write songs, but like one of the things I do is I have on my phone, I just have like a file of, my wife calls them doot doots. Because I'll leave the room and I'll just make like a doot doo 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 doo. I'll make like a little like all the music that you hear in Cruce Signatus is, at one point I just kind of doot dooted it into my phone, and then I wrote it later. So I've got like 300 doot doots still in here that have not been written for Cruce Signatus, even after I finished four albums. So like there's a ton of stuff I could do with it. I don't know if I'll do more Cruce Signatus. I mean, especially because it seems all contained in one, once the movie's or once the film's done, like, I don't know, do I want to make another movie? Is there more story to tell? So I kind of imagine myself moving on to other types of projects, kind of what I did with Pillaging Villagers, if you're familiar with that. Like Pillaging Villagers was a project that it was like a band I started when I was 15. I wrote the first songs when I was 15, and then I just like, I've always liked the idea of just combining thrash and folk and writing it about pillaging peasants and whatnot. So I just like went on like a 20-year hiatus, and I'm like, I'll just finish this up. So once I did that, I was like, okay, I've said all I can in the thrash folk voice. Now I kind of like feel like, okay, once I release these four albums, that kind of feels like a good stopping point. And for me, I'm very creatively kind of like ravenous. Like I always want to do other things that are weird. Like I'm learning the banjo now, because I really wanted to do something totally different. Like I'm not into banjo music. I don't really listen to it at all, but I've always loved the instrument, and I thought it'd be cool to just like play the banjo by a riverside or in a canoe or something like that. I just thought it'd be cool. And as I'm doing that, I'm like, oh man, now I'm kind of excited about doing like a folk album or something like that, or collaborating with other people to do like folk music, like something totally not metal, totally not heavy in any way. I'm really inspired by folks like Devin Townsend, who just like, it seems like every time he puts out an album, it's just like a bigger middle finger to the audience. Like he doesn't give a fuck if anyone listens to it. It's all about his own personal growth, personal journey. So I kind of feel like that in a way. So I guess to answer your question, like I can't predict it, but I would say that if I were to put money on it, I would probably do something. The next thing you hear after these four albums are done is something totally different.
I appreciate so much that you mentioned Devin. He's one of my biggest musical heroes. So, and I can really see that mindset between the two of you. I mean, obviously, different styles of music, different reasoning for all of it, different lives, but
Mhm.
just making the music that you want to make for you. Seeing that in both of you, I can totally see that. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's again, like whatever you decide to do after everything's done here with the creation of these four albums. I'm so excited to see what happens with that. And of course, seeing all of these combined, I can't wait to play it all from start to finish and hear all 2.5 hours and see how it all plays out. And then, of course, the animated version of all of it together to see the whole movie unfold. Like all
Yeah.
of this has me so excited. And of course, being brand new to everything that you're doing with this project, it's just got me so excited, and I'm so excited to have been able to talk to you about all this, get really a deep dive into how you create songs, what your vision is for all of this, and what to look forward to in the future. It's just been an incredible time, and I thank you so much for taking the time to be able to talk to me about all of it.
Yeah, no, it was a huge pleasure. I rarely get to talk to people that are as insightful as you. I mean, it's just clear that you put a lot of effort into listening to it and you really enjoyed it. And that really makes me feel good. So I really appreciate you talking with me, and definitely appreciate all you do for the scene, supporting bands. Like without folks like you, like it doesn't, it's just Century Media and Nuclear Blast, and that's it. Like no one gets to make music or be heard. So I really appreciate all you do, and thank you so much for your time.
Oh, absolutely. And before we go, plug away. Feel free to mention everything, where to get the album, all of that stuff. Like, let people know where to check you out.
Yeah, great. That's awesome. Thank you. I mean, you can first of all, you can find Cruce Signatus's album on Spotify. Any of the other platforms that are out there. It's on Bandcamp as well. If you want to check out the video, it's on YouTube. I think all my socials have links to my like link tree, and you can just click through. Like it has the video, it has Spotify page, it has all my stuff. So if you go to either Instagram or Facebook, or I have a TikTok, but no one cares about TikTok. But yeah, if you probably like Facebook or Instagram, I've got links to it. You can go to all those things. If anyone's interested in supporting the project, I definitely encourage you to just buy the album on Bandcamp. Like, don't like you don't have to give me a bunch of money or anything. Like, just $5 for the album. It goes a long way. If you want to do more, I have a Patreon. It's linked in the link tree. I'll put a pitch for that, but I don't expect much. Really, just I hope people enjoy it. Watch the video if anyone hasn't already. I'm really proud of it, and I think anyone who's I think that's a good like introduction to this project. First of all, so I think that's all my plugs. Oh, check out Pillaging Villagers as well if you're interested in other stuff I've done. It's again on Spotify, Bandcamp, anywhere you want to find it.
Oh, awesome. I think that's a great way to end it. I can't wait to be able to show this off. The interview should be up tomorrow, so more people will get the chance to check it out. And of course, I'll be plugging everything, tagging everything, showing off the video, all that good stuff, making sure that it goes in the right directions. And I just want to thank you again for taking the time to do this. It's very insightful. I have a even more deeper appreciation for all this because I can just tell how much heart and soul really went into this, and it's just got me excited for albums 2 through 4 again, like I've mentioned, and just being able to see all of this combined. And hopefully we can talk again, and like whenever the next releases come out, because it'd be great to be able to see the my opinions of how everything has changed from the first release into the second, third, and fourth, and everything that goes with it. And again, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, you too, and definitely. I'll look forward to connecting with you next time the album comes out. And thanks so much for your time, and we'll talk soon.
Oh, sounds great. Have a great rest of the night.
You too. Take care.
Bye
Bye.
bye.